Hello again, everyone, and welcome to my channel, Dr. Teacher Mom. Today, we'll be looking at An Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley, and we'll be looking at the context of this play. Let's begin. So, to understand the context of the play, it's helpful to know a little about the playwright J.B. Priestley and his life and what his political views were during the early 20th century. Now, at that time, there was a lot of great global change. J.B. Priestley wrote An Inspector Calls after the Second World War, and like much of his work, it is quite controversial. It is politically charged. It has a lot of messages that's politically based. He was keen to pioneer a new morality in politics, and the play is a morality play. His chief concerns involved social inequality in Britain and the need for nuclear disarmament. The characters we see at the time that the curtain rises are not the same as those at the play's conclusion. And what I mean by that is the characters, at least the younger ones, go through real great change in terms of their viewpoints, in terms of how they felt their political views. And I'm talking about Sheila and Gerald and Eric. So the events of the evening change everyone as well as their expectations of the future. It's quite, you can argue that Mr. and Mrs. Berlin hasn't really changed much. At the end, they still want to say that, okay, it's not their fault. They had no part to play in Eva Smith's death. Inspector Gould is instrumental in disturbing the harmony. He's a purposeful, mysterious character who forces the other characters to confront each other's social responsibility. And that's a real great theme in this play. Social responsibility also forces them to confront each other's snobbery and guilt. It is the inspector who puts this light, shines the light on these characters. But the question is there, is the inspector as genuine as he seems? All these changes take place because of the visit of Inspector Gould. But who is he, and who is the girl whose suicide he is apparently investigating? So that at the end of the play, we have these questions. J.B. Priestley, he deliberately sets the play in 1912. So the play is written in the Second World War, but it is deliberately set in 1912, so 2 years before the First World War, because the date represented an era when all was very different from the time he was writing. In 1912, there was a rigid class and gender boundaries were in place, and these seemed to ensure that nothing would change. Yet by 1945, when the play is written, most of those class and gender divisions had been breached. Priestley wanted to make the most of these changes Through this play, he encourages people to seize the opportunity the end of the war had given them to build a better and a more caring society. We're going to look at some of the political views that J.B. Priestley shines a light or reveals to us in the play. So during the 1930s, Priestley became very concerned about the consequences of social inequality in Britain. That is at the heart of the play. And in 1942, Priestley and others set up a new political party, and this party was called the Commonwealth Party. It is argued that this was set up for public ownership of land, greater democracy, and a new morality in politics. The party merged with the Labour Party in 1945, but Priestley was influential in developing the idea of the welfare state, which began to be put into place at the end of the war. He believed that further world wars could only be avoided through cooperation and mutual respect between countries, and so became active in the early movement for a United Nations. And as the nuclear arms race between West and East began in the 1950s, he helped to found CND, hoping that Britain would set an example to the world by a moral act of nuclear disarmament. So we've come to the end of this tutorial on context. Thanks for being with me, thanks for joining me, and thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.